Okay. So last class we were discussing about the secondary electron imaging. How does the secondary electron get generated? In today's class, we continue about the secondary electron. A little bit more about how to control the number of secondary electron and how to detect the secondary electron. So what kind of detectors that we have, and again to increase the number of secondary electron, in which region that we should need to work. So all this part that we will discuss. So just 1 minute. Okay. Fine. So I'll share the screen now. You can see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, this secondary electron, what we generate is actually we're going to have the energy spread, which is going to have some value. It is going to increase from 0 to, depending on this peak can be somewhere around 5 to 15 kb, and then it will decrease. Okay. So why this increase and decrease, we will discuss a little bit more with the image, that part when we discuss about the image part. How does the image resolution changes? Okay, now let me discuss this point, then it will be better. Okay, now why this is increasing? Let's say that you are getting a increase up to this point. Okay, now suppose you take this is your sample. Okay, so now this is your electron beam you're getting, and this is the probe diameter. Okay, now let's say in 0K you don't get anything, because that's the reason you have this value. Okay, because in 0K there is no acceleration voltage, so you don't see any electron which is coming out. Now the moment you increase this voltage, let's say that you come out somewhere around, let's say around 1 kV. So what is going to happen is you'll see this small interaction volume. Okay, so from this small interaction volume, you start getting the secondary electron. Okay, so suppose if we increase this kV voltage further, let's say it goes somewhere around, let's say this is 2 kV. So automatically this volume will increase. So now the number of secondary electron which is coming out is going to increase. Okay. Now you reach to a level, let's say that you have reached to a level, that's a peak. Okay. 5 kV. So let's assume that this is your interaction volume at 5 kV. Now again you are getting secondary electron where the number is also increased. It's fine. Beyond this, what is happening, like if let's say that if we increase the voltage a little bit somewhere around, let's say that they come around 7 kV. I'm just giving arbitrary value. It may be close to that, but but these values are actually the 5 to 15 kV maximum that what you obtain is, it depends on the sample. We also know that depending on the atomic number value, this is going to change. Let's say that you increase a little bit to 7 kV. Okay. Now you start seeing the decrease in the number of secondary electron. Why? Any idea? Do you have any idea that why this number can decrease? So if you look at a work function, yes.
Magnetic field, due to magnetic field.
No, nothing to do with the magnetic field. So if you look at work function, what is work function? See, the most of the electrons are generated because the beam, it will be like this. It's the way it will be, the beam will be like this. It will go like this and it will form interaction volume like this. Let's say this is your sample surface. So the most of the electrons are generated in this region. So before reaching, because it has to go through this the sample. So before reaching here, some of them can get absorbed here. Okay. So that is the reason you start seeing the decrease. But further, let's say that you further increase it somewhere here. Okay. So what can happen is it will be like this. Interaction value will be like this. So from here also, electron will be coming, but that may not able to escape through the surface. Okay. So that is the reason that you see here, when you increase the initially as a function of voltage, you start seeing an increase. Okay. Once it reaches a peak, then again you start seeing a decrease in the number of electrons because the electrons which are generated much lower level from the surface. That is actually the reason why you start seeing this kind of a decrease. So this particular value, the peak is something, see, we already know that this depth depends on your atomic number. Okay, the higher the atomic number, the lesser is going to be your interaction volume. So then this number is, see, that's the reason I said, what is, let's say that you take a sample, some sample, let's say this is 5 kV, a particular sample, you have the 5 kV is the optimum voltage. Let's say that you are getting the maximum. Maybe you take another sample which is having higher atomic number, you do 5 kV, you may not actually, let's say that one sample, a sample A is having this kind of a spread. Okay. So sample B, which is having the atomic number little bit more, let's say that. So in that case, it will be like this. Okay. So what do you say, at exactly at 5 kV, you may not get the best resolution. So for that, you may require to go somewhere around 7 or 10 kV, 8 to 10 kV. So there is a one thing that you should need to understand from here is that it's pretty clear that kV is actually, you have to identify the optimum for a particular sample. It's not only the kV is going to give you the resolution, there are other factors which we'll discuss in this class, which also affects the resolution part. But one thing that is pretty clear is that it is not, there is nothing called optimum for all the samples. So you have to vary and you check and you know that, okay, this particular sample, this is an optimum that I'm getting, this is the range that I'm getting the highest electron yield. So that can give me the best secondary electron values. So another thing that you should, you can actually look at all this, the range is actually very low. We will see a little bit on this aspect also. Okay. If you compare the energy value of backscatter electron, this is the range where you start getting a backscatter electron. We'll see what is backscatter electron a little bit later. Now you can see this compared to the backscatter electron, this secondary electron is having much lower value. This is one of the important thing that in fact influence the detector design. We'll see a little bit later. So this is a very important thing. You should also, this graph gives you two aspects. One is about the how does this electron yield varies as a function of voltage, and again secondary electron and the backscatter electron. So in which electron energy range that actually gives you the maximum yield that we are going to see. Another thing you can see here, this value, you compare this value and this value. Okay, so let's say you have say that you say that you have one incoming electron, incident electron. Okay, so in general that can create more than one secondary electron. Okay, but on the other hand, if you look at a backscatter electron, generally if you have a one electron, one incident electron, you cannot create, because this is exactly the incoming electron. So you can you must be having always the backscatter electron must be less than one of incident electron. Let's say that incident electron is 10, means at the maximum you can have if all the incident electrons coming out means you can have 10. 10:1 the ratio. In general, it will be the outcome, means the electron which is coming out maybe around 2 out of 10 or maybe 1 out of 10. It will be like this. So that is the reason why this difference is also there. So the reason why you get a better resolution in a secondary electron compared to the big backscatter electron is that you have a higher number of secondary electron compared to the backscatter electron. So that is another reason why you start get a better resolution in the secondary electron. Okay. So let me go to that next part. The factors that affect the secondary electron emission. So we already discussed the work function of the surface. As I said, work function say that if you have, let's say that you have a material with 3 kV is work function, another one is having a 10 kilo electron volt, 10 eV, not K. Let's say 3 eV, 10 eV. So now you have an incident beam, which is, let's say that you have a 5 kV. Here also 5 kV. So which one is going to give, let's say this is your sample 1, this is your sample 2. So which one is going to give you the more number of secondary electron? Sample 1 or sample 2? Which one will give? I'm having keeping the accelerating voltage, that's the incoming electron voltage is constant. But the work function of two different materials are different. So one is having the 3 eV, another one is having 10 eV. So this is your work function pi. This is work function 10 eV. So which one is going to give you a more number of secondary electrons?
Percent of.
Yes, because you have a work function means it's a barrier. You have some barrier. Here I have a barrier is smaller. So you are going to get a more number of secondary electron here compared to, so if you look at in these two sample, SC1 is going to have more compared to SC2. Let's say from number of secondary electron which is coming from here, we assume that SC1, this is SC2. In that case, you start seeing this SC1 must be larger than SC2 because the barrier is actually smaller. Okay. So another thing is that, as we already discussed, electron yield goes through the maximum at the low accelerating voltage, then decreases with increasing acceleration voltage, which we already discussed why it is increasing from up to particular range and why it is decreasing, that also we discussed. So these are the two things which actually affects the secondary emission level. So this we already discussed, this part. Okay, now let me just jump one step. Okay. Okay. Now, in general, this would be the detector. This is actually your secondary electron detector. This is the backscatter electron detector. So this is your secondary electron detector. Okay, first thing, this is let's say this is your beam. So this could be the place where you keep your sample. Okay. So one thing you can see that this is at a certain angle. If you really measure it, let's say this is your sample. So you have a detector. This angle in general, it would be somewhere around, let's say this is your detector, 45 degree. Why this kind of change that we are getting? Any idea? But you can see the backscatter electron detectors are somewhere here. Okay, so how do we detect this secondary electron? Okay, then let us first try to understand before getting into that part. Okay, now this is your, let's say this is your sample. This is your incoming electron. It is giving some interaction volume. Okay, now the secondary electrons are coming. So it can go in all the directions. See, now the electrons are coming out. It can move in all the directions. Okay. So now I cannot put a detector somewhere here because it is actually the path. This is actually the path. So we don't want to put it. So I should not do that. Let me slightly change. This is actually not the way. So this is actually the beam. Okay. So we cannot put it here. Okay. If you put it here, you can put it. See, actually, what do we do here in the detector is, detector means we'll put some positive bias. See, what is actually so this electron is actually negatively charged. So if you put a positive bias, it can actually pull those electrons. Okay. So that is the way actually this secondary electron detector works. So we give some amount of positive bias. So another thing that if we can go back here, what is actually the energy range of this secondary electrons are actually, see what is the accelerating voltage is also low and the energy of secondary electron is also low. So in that sense, the advantage is that you give a very small bias so that you can actually pull the electron. So what we do is actually we don't put. If you put somewhere here, let's say if you put it here, you need lot of bending. Okay, this second electron has to bend a lot. Okay, so it has to bend like this. This electron should need to bend like this. This has to bend like this. So that is actually the difficult part. Okay. So that is the reason actually if you put somewhere here around 45 degree, okay, so now you put it here, it's easy to but still these electrons are actually will not go to the detector. Okay. So, but another reason actually we don't go closer is actually this can actually destabilize. Let's say that you go closer here, you put a positive bias, this can actually destabilize the incident beam as well as the backscatter electron. Backscatter electron will it is a little bit later. Backscatter electron should come like this. So if you put somewhere closer to the incident electron, so this can actually pull the backscatter electron also. That can damage the secondary electron detector. Okay, so this is the reason why again the second electron can bend. Second electron can bend, but backscatter electron cannot bend. That's another important reason. Second electron can bend. Okay, maybe just to show it better, let me show if I have image. Yes. Yes. Yeah. You can see here. So put a positive bias only at 200 volt. That can actually take all the secondary electron from the sample. But see, let's say that you have a secondary electron detector is here in this region. It is bright. So for this, in this region, the electron should come out like this. So it has to come like this. So let's say this region is this region. So electron should come out to this path. The probability is actually lower by going through this kind of path. Okay, so here it can come very easily. So if it is coming from this region, it can come very easily. That's the reason. Generally, you can see a slight difference in the brightness and the contrast. If you compare from, let's say, if you have a detector in this angle, then you see this range will be much better compared to the other one. Okay. This is another aspect. And one more thing that I can show you here is okay. So now what we are doing is this is your sample. So this is your detector. Now this angle is 45 degree. This is 45 degree. So now you are getting a second electron. It is going here. So now this is the image without tilting. Now what we are going to do is let us tilt the sample 45 degree. So then the probability of electron which is going to the second electron detector would be larger. That's what you can see this image. You can see this is, I hope this is the region you have the SE detector. So this region is actually opposite to that. So you can see the contrast difference from one region to another. Okay. But while tilting, you can see these images are, the contrast has become much better. Okay. Because So you see that most of the secondary electrons are actually going to the detector in this case. So that is actually the reason why you see a same KV without changing any other parameters. If you really want to get a better resolution image, you can actually tilt it. So that's because the fundamental understanding is actually when you tilt it, you are actually possible you are getting the more number of secondary electron in this place. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Else we'll go to the next part. I have to go.
Hello, sir.
Yes, yes.
Sir, instead of one detector, can we use two detectors in opposite direction so that the net magnetic field of the incoming electrons become zero and the more secondary electron can be detected?
See, the reason why we are not using our 2 second electron detector is because when you image it, it will be a confusion. See, now you are actually in one detector, you are counting the number. Let's say 300, and another region is giving 200. Suppose you use 2 detector, there also you will get some number. So then counting will be difficult. So you can actually have, but again, SCM is actually generally we don't use 2 detector. So what you're saying is it's not a problem. We can actually get more number of secondary electron, but in fact it's not necessary because those ports are the number of ports are smaller, and we need ports, especially the detectors having hub ports. Those ports are actually we need for a different application. Like you need a BSC detector, you need a EBSC detector. So that is the reason actually we generally if you use it will become better, but it is not going to make a significant difference. So that is the reason we don't actually have the 2 detectors. Otherwise, you can use. Practically means theoretically you can use. Any other question? Okay. So there are no questions. Then we'll go to the next part. Okay. Next part is the backscattered electron. So already we discussed. So in secondary electron, what is that actually is that it is actually a sample electron. Okay. But what we see in the backscatter electron is, let's say this is your incident electron. It is going through the sample, attracted by the nucleus, then it is changing direction, then it goes through this path. Okay. But what is going to happen is, this is going to come from the region where, this is the region where it is going to come. Because this second electron is having higher energy level. Because if you look at here, so it is penetrating the beam, which is penetrating to the larger core level. From there only we are getting. Only then you get a sufficient number. See, until to reach to that level, you don't see any. Let's say up to this. Let's say you have electron energy up to this range. You don't get no backscatter electron because those electron. So only when it goes to a sufficient to large kV value, so that means you reach to this level. Only you reach this level, then you get a sufficient number of backscatter electron. Okay. So then again, the path it travels is almost like, if it starts like this, it will come like this. Sometimes it can come like this also. So at best you can say it's a 170 to 180 degree angle. So only 10 degree, you can see the difference. So you start 180, then it can actually maybe a 10 degree tilt will be there. So only those electrons we can actually detect. What is coming out is also compared to the second electron, the number of backscatter electrons are poor, because if you have one incident electron, at maximum that you can only this can come out. Okay, but on the other hand, you can this once incident electron can knock off. Let's say this can knock off here, and while coming and another atom it can knock off. So it can actually you can do a multiple collision and still you can produce more than one secondary electron. But on the other hand, backscatter electrons number is actually limited. So that is another reason why you don't see the resolution wise you don't see much. The resolution of secondary electron is much better. So that is the reason generally we use secondary electron for the imaging purpose. Backscatter electron also we use for imaging purpose, but the reason is slightly a different one. Okay, so the fraction of the incident electrons are retarded by the electromagnetic field of the nucleus. So this is actually there will be electromagnetic field of the nucleus surrounding that. It will be retarding and it will be scattering. So it can scatter in all the directions. So the only which is coming, let's say that coming at 180 degree only, we can actually detect it. Okay, so which can actually escape from the surface. Okay, so what is the contrast mechanism here? So the contrast mechanism here is, now if you look at this is a sample. So this backscatter electron will not give you the morphology based contrast. So it will be giving atomic number contrast. Okay. Now let us take two different system. Let's say you take a one low atomic number atom. This is your nucleus. You have path. Okay. So this is your incident beam. Just go like this. So another one is actually the higher atomic number. Okay. So you have a bigger nucleus and you have all these cells. Okay. So again you have a this is possible. Now if you look at the number, let's say number of backscatter electron with the number of incoming electron. That is what BSc yield. We call BSc yield is number of backscatter electrons divided by number of incident electron. So this is going to, the BSc yield is going to increase as a function of atomic number. Okay. Suppose you have in a single material, you have a two region. Let's say that you have a sample. In this one, you have this range is low atomic number. This region is high atomic number. Okay. So what is the basic difference is when you have high atomic number, it has a larger electromagnetic field because the nucleus is bigger and it has a larger magnetic field. So the number of the backscatter electron means it can attract and it can actually deflect. The electromagnetic field of this nucleus can be much larger, so that probabilistically you are going to increase the more number of backscatter electron. So let's say that from here, let's say that your incident electron is, let's say that you have incident electron, let's say 100. Total incident electron which is falling here and which is falling here is, let's say 100. So in this region, let's say you are getting 20. So this region you may get 50. Okay. So now we have seen earlier the region which is getting the higher, any higher number of electron will be brighter. Okay. From the region which we are getting the lower number of electron, we say it's a dark. Okay. Now let us take a sample which is having aluminum and copper. Aluminum atomic number is 13 and copper atomic number is 29. Now you can see this image. There is a contrast. Okay. In this sample, this phase, these are the white phase. These regions are having higher atomic number. So these are the region which is actually a lower atomic number. So now you are getting a contrast. The contrast is not because of the surface morphology. Suppose you have a sample, this is actually Z13 and you take another sample which is having Z is actually 14. If you take a backscattered image, it will be completely a same contrast. You may not see anything, you will have everything black. But on the same sample, if you see in the second electron mode, you can actually see because of the peaks and valleys in the sample, you can see the contrast, but you cannot see the contrast in the backscattered image. But this is very useful when you have, suppose you want to understand the chemistry, let's say chemically, let's say you have two phases which are having a certain heavier elements are segregated in one region and lighter elements are segregated in another region. So those places, these backscatter electrons are very useful. So generally, backscatter electron alone, we don't use it for many applications, but when you combine with the backscatter electron with the secondary electron, many times you get a lot of interesting information that you usually get in. So the contrast mechanism is very different from what we see in the secondary electron. Here the contrast, it is mainly coming because of the atomic number contrast. But when you have a sample where you have 2 or 3 different elements are present, but those, let's say you take Z12, 13 and 14, then you don't see any contrast in the sample because the atomic number difference between the 3 elements are not much. So you don't see much contrast. So this is the backscatter electron. Okay, now let us look at this sample. This is actually a backscatter electron image. This is secondary electron image. So this is actually the backscatter electron image. You can see that these are actually completely different. See the image, the contrast what you get, this region is actually white and this region is black. But you can see here it's all completely a different contrast. You see 3 different contrasts. You see one here, this is another contrast and the background is another contrast. Okay. So here this is actually a tin rich region. This is zinc rich region. Okay. So depending on the atomic number, you start seeing the contrast. See now you see here, this is actually you see topographical feature that especially based on a morphology, topographic features that you can see in a secondary electron, but you can see nothing in the backscatter electron. So this is something that we should need to understand. So that's the main reason why generally we use secondary electron for any surface. There is going to be a high difference depending on the etching or depending on the morphology. You start seeing a lot of morphological, topographic difference will be there. So then you start getting a contrast. So that is going to be the better one compared to the backscatter electron. But backscatter electrons are very useful for when you do phase analysis, when you have a sample which are having a different composition in different region, then you may require a backscatter image. So many of our work we generally use both combination of both. Both are important. maybe as a person who works in biology may not require backscatter electron. Very rarely they need a backscatter electron. The people who works on material science, they need a lot of this secondary electron. General, we need backscatter electron also. We use it in many different applications, especially in metallurgical sample. We do use a lot of this backscatter electron to understand the segregation of the element and segregation of the phases. We can easily understand what kind of phase it can be. Whether it is a two different morphology may look, you can actually see the contrast in a morphology, but it can be a in a BSc you can see completely a homogeneous mixture also you can get. So this is what the backscatter electron image that yeah, okay. Have any questions you can ask me? I can go to the next part. Okay, let me complete the next part also. Okay. So, how many of them heard about the sputter coating in the in SEM? Sputter coating. We discussed about sputter coating in SEM. There are students, I think. How many of them have here used?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So do you know why we need to use a sputter coating?
So we have to make the sample conductive
to
get the image. That's the idea.
Okay. Why do we need to make the sample conductive? If it is not conductive, what is going to happen?
So there won't be any signals, like electron interaction will not be happening.
It will be happening. No, it will be happening, but I'll explain. It will be happening. There also there will be electron specimen interaction will be happening, but it will be happening more. That is actually the problem. Okay, not say now if you look at this image, this is an uncoated sample. Okay, this is a coated sample. Okay. See, this coating is required only you have a sample which is electrically, you need electrically non-conducting samples. Okay. But if your sample is conducting, you don't have any problem. So the reason is actually, let's say that you are having conducting sample. Okay, this is your sample which is coming. This is your sample. So this is your holder. It will be something like that. You have a holder. Okay, this is your electron which is coming. So something is happening. There is an interaction volume. This interaction is happening. Okay, you get secondary electron, all this stuff. But still, so many means most of the electrons will actually go through this sample path. Okay, then you should have earthing. Okay, finally it will get earth. So you'll have earthing. Okay, so the electron which is not actually participated in the whole interaction process will go through the sample, and it finally will go to the earth. Okay, this is for a conducting sample. Suppose if you have a sample which is not conducting, okay, if the sample which is not conducting, so what is going to happen is, you have sample. So the electron which is coming here, okay, something is actually interacting inside. Remaining electron, because it cannot go out, so basically the lot of electron cloud will be generated on the sample surface, because you are not giving the complete path, means you are not completing the path, because it cannot go through this path, because this sample is not conducting one. Okay, because it is not conducting, all the charge electrons will be accumulated on the surface of the sample. Okay. So now let's say that now you have a secondary electron detector. Okay. Now you say that you have a you say, let's say that from here, let's say 5 secondary electron is coming. So how you are actually getting electron, which is secondary electron, which is coming out. Now you are having a positive bias. Okay, this positive bias is pulling the secondary electron. Based on the number of secondary electron, you are getting the contrast. Now what can happen is the electrons which are accumulated on the surface, this can also go inside. So now what is going to happen is you start seeing, see now this is what, see, you start seeing the brighter. Bright means the number of electrons which are coming out larger and larger. Now it is not only that secondary electron which is coming out from the sample is actually going to the detector. There are other electrons which are actually sitting on the accumulated on the sample surface. That is also actually influencing your image. That is the reason you don't see the contrast. See, this is actually a coated one. This is an uncoated one. Okay. If this is actually your bulk sample, how do we actually give a connection? Let's say that generally we do coating for a we do coating for the ceramic sample. First, let me complete the bulk sample. Then I will come back to the. Let's say that this is your sample. Okay. So now this incident beam is coming. This is uncoated. This is actually a uncoated sample. Now what I am giving is actually we generally give a silver paste. Give a silver paste. To give us connection. It's a through silver paste. You give a connection. So this is actually your stage. So now what can happen is the accumulated electron what is coming out, it can actually find a path here. It can go through this one, and again the loop can be completed. Okay, this is for a bulk sample. Okay. Suppose if you have a powder sample, so just generally what we do, I do not know how many of them used at SEM. So whenever you have a powder sample, this is we call carbon coated. Not a grid actually, carbon coated. So it will be like a stub you have. This will be the stub. Above the stub, we actually place this carbon coated. It's a conducting material. The kind of tape we put. So above the tape, actually we'll actually sprinkle the powders. Okay. Now this is your powders. This is your actually the material. Let's say this is a sample that you have. Suppose this is uncoated, what is going to happen is this is your incident beam which is hitting all these samples. Again, if it is uncoated, see this region is actually conducting. This tape is conducting. The stub is a metallic, it will be conducting. But this particle which is not conducting. Okay. The particle what you have is not conducting. So what can happen is, let's say if this is your sample surface, then a lot of electrons are going to accumulate on the surfaces. So that may not allow you to get a proper imaging. So what we generally do is, we do a sputtering, like take this entire stub and everything inside with the tape, you coat it with the gold. Okay, gold, silver, platinum, a small layer, thin layer that we coat it. It will be few nanometers. Okay. So now what is going to happen is, this can, let's say this electron will not accumulate because you are actually providing a path here. So basically this is conducting, the tape is conducting, now your sample is actually having a continuity. So the electron can go to this way, and you can complete the path. So the main reason why actually coating can give the electrically conducting coating. Generally, we give platinum coating or a gold coating. Gold is actually very common. Silver also you can give. Gold is very common. We do the gold sputtering. So by doing gold sputtering, you can actually make the sample conducting, make it conducting, so that you don't see the charging effect. But again, the how much coating that you have to give, how long that you have to coat, that depends on your sample. Again, if you are using a nanomaterials, you don't want to coat it because already your sample dimension is small. You have small particle. If you coat it, then coating can have a significant impact on your. When you do chemical analysis, you start seeing the gold also in the chemical analysis. We don't want that. So that is the reason actually we use low kV, low vacuum. That all those ACM that we will discuss a little bit later. Low vacuum image and so many things. Then we use ESM. Then we use inlands. So all those are slightly advanced version of the second scanning electron microscope. That part also we'll discuss in this course a little bit later once I complete the basic second scanning electron microscope. So this is the reason we actually coat it for the coating practice that we use generally for powders we use the sputter coating, and then some critical samples we use this silver paste also. But the way that you do silver paste actually is a very tricky one that you have to use it properly so that you will get a good image. Okay. I'm stopping here. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Hello?
Yes, yes.
Sir, without sputtering, can we see biological samples?
Yes, you can see, but generally biological samples we don't go through this process.